I think the prime lens cinema lens market is so saturated. I don't think it would be a good idea for them to go into this.
I think it's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
You know why? Because for the higher end, big DPs, great DPs already used to work with certain brands, certain lenses. Now, why should they change to a Nikon lens suddenly, as good as they are? And we know there's so many other companies, I don't want to name names here, but so many other companies that we all know tried to kind of have a combat on the higher end of the lens market and never managed to do this. And then if you go to the lower end, you are facing obviously a competition with so many other companies like CineD and so on that are really pushing kind of good quality for a very affordable price, for example. So that means that if Nikon is going to do any cine lenses, they really have to find a niche. They have to find the right price point and performance in order to live in between those two high end and low end. Yeah, I think it's very tough.
What's new in filmmaking technology this week? News, reviews, education, insights, opinions, and ideas from the CineD newsroom with Nino and Johnnie Bahiri. This is Focus Check, the weekly CineTech podcast.
Welcome to episode 52 of CineD Focus Check. Johnny, the year is full.
Nino, how
great,
are you?
Huh? We made a full year of podcasts.
That's already full. 52. You're right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So, and actually, I think we should close the first year of our podcast, how we started it.
Well,
how did we start it?
I'm still shocked. I can't believe it. We're sitting here, and we haven't changed the background for 1 year.
This provisional background is still the same.
Temporary.
You know how it is with temporary solutions.
Exactly.
But anyway, everybody who is listening to us doesn't care about the background.
Exactly.
So,
but you know that some people are watching. We can see. We can see.
A lot of people are watching. Many more people are watching than listening. But anyway, I just wanted to say, let's close the year how we started it, and that is with Red and Nikon, right? We kind of had a bit of a boost at the beginning because I think it was the first or second?
Second episode, no? When suddenly Nikon announced the acquisition of Red, and we were like...
And now finally, we're actually 1 year later, we're finally seeing things happening.
Yeah,
the first thing we talked about, I think, last week, which was NRAW support in Red Code X. And now we have Red cameras with a Z mount. And
which is, of course, very significant because we were debating and talking about this. What will happen to the RF mount in all of those Nikon cameras? In all of those Red cameras. And now we finally have the answer.
The good thing is the RF mount still seems to be there. So there's a different option. It's not interchangeable. So you get either the Z mount V-RAPTOR now or KOMODO-X. Both of them are now available with the Z mount. Or you get the RF version. Now,
Z mount is really great, no?
Why is it great?
Well, the French flag is so the distance.
The flange distance,
is so
minimal.
It's so minimal that actually it's very easy to adapt to any other lens. So even if you have some E-mount lenses with a simple adapter, it should be really good. Although this is with electronics. That means that the original mount, the original new Z mount, is with electronics. That means that you can actually control all the latest version of the Nikon lenses. But again, it's very adaptable. And on top, they also have a new adapter to PL lenses. So that's they're thinking on a ecosystem solution. It's nice.
I mean, it's really cool because essentially, I didn't even know this before reading up on it. It's not that I'm that familiar with Nikon cameras, to be honest, but the Z mount really is the most versatile mirrorless mount because of that short flange distance. And like you said, you can adapt and you can have an E mount. They don't have an E mount adapter, but you can buy an E mount adapter from, I think, Kippon and some others. And then literally you have the whole ecosystem of Sony compatible E mount lenses that you can now use on a Red camera. That's significant. And it basically means you can adapt any lens on this camera because basically everything, right?
Yeah, I like the color they chose for the little ring to differentiate it from the RF mount.
Well, it's a
nice,
typical
no?
Nikon color, no? Yeah, it's
almost.
I think you still have to go. I'm never ever every time I use a Nikon lens, I'm just turning in the wrong direction. Also, mounting the lens, I think, can be quite dangerous if you just like do it quickly. But I mean, it's amazing. It's really, I think, making a big difference for people who are getting into this ecosystem. And I'm sure this is just the very first step of something.
You're talking about lenses. They will have this new Nikon 28 to 135 millimeter power zoom lens, and I'm really wondering how the focusing will be there. If it's gonna be
it's Nikon style for sure. You think that why would they change it just for one lens?
I don't know. I mean, somehow they.
It's just you're left-handed, no? Maybe Nikon are Nikon cameras are cameras for left-handed people.
Not so sure. I mean, because you are growing up to work in a certain way, and then suddenly you have to kind of flip it, in your mind.
Yeah, but also, I mean, like you said, they also announced PL adapters for the new Z-mount camera, which are natively from RED. And of course, I mean, it's a locking Z-mount, by the way. It's really, like you can lock it and it gives you the, this satisfaction that your camera, like it will be locked there and it's like secure. And the original PL mount though, I mean, they have a normal PL mount for $1,500, but they also have one with electronic ND.
Yeah.
And that's very pricey at $3,500. That's half the price of the Komodo almost, or it is actually exactly half the price of a Komodo-X. But at least, I mean, you can have variable ND now also with this adapter using PL lenses. That's quite nice, but still a very, very pricey option. So.
We are big advocates of whatever the main tool to work with, let's say a camera, whatever the price is, the accessories around it should be priced in a logical way. It can't cost more. And obviously, when it comes to cost half, you have to judge if this is something for your liking. But can we talk a little bit about this lens? First of all, for us, when we first saw the lens, it was like, wow, that looks familiar. Because in so many ways, it looks like a 7 years old Sony lens.
It's older. We reviewed this. I linked to it. We reviewed this 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
February 2015. We reviewed this lens.
I think it's the same focal length, like 28 to 135.
It's exactly
f4.
The same. Yeah, it seems like it's exactly the same focal length. It has the same coverage, I think. F4, it's servo zoom, so it must.
Do you think there was a special offer for Nikon, meaning Sony told them, hey, buy 10,000 sensors from us and get the lens specifications? I don't know. I mean, it's like it looks almost one-on-one.
It's very hard to say. I'm sure it's a little bit different. It doesn't make much sense to compare them, though, in my opinion, because you simply cannot use them on the same cameras. I mean, the one is an E mount and the other one is a Z mount.
And it doesn't really matter. No, at the end,
it doesn't matter.
It's a bit more possibilities for Nikon users. It's nice to have a zoom lens for run and gun. F4, we know that every time you want to go a bit even faster with a lens, it means a bigger lens.
I just know from the Sony, we haven't touched this lens, but I know the issues we had with the Sony lens, and they might not be the same for the Nikon, but with the Sony lens, it's not an actual. Once you switch to manual zoom or manual focusing, there's still motors working in there, which gives you kind of a delay. There's no actual way of controlling. I think you can actually I think the zoom might be fully manual, but the actual focusing is always kind of like fly-by-wire. So it's very difficult to hit focus manually. Might or might not be the same with the Nikon version, but
I will see the lens again, because last time I saw it was in November when I was at the Interbi in Japan, and next week we're at CP Plus. I'll check the lens again. But one thing that is I feel a bit uncomfortable, because they are naming it Cine lens, no?
Yeah.
What is so Cine about it?
Not much. It's more like a broadcast kind of lens, right? And also, I mean, they say it's good for gimbal because it doesn't change the weight distribution as you zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but for gimbal usage, it's big. I mean, they on the press photo here, they show it on an RS4 Pro, which is the biggest of the small gimbals from DJI. And I mean, look at the setup. That's not something you want to carry all day. And
you can. I mean, if you go to the gym first and then
it's possible. But I think in general, I think 28 is quite. It's not wide enough for a lot of gimbal shots, but it depends what you need. Yeah, of course, it's nice to have the ability to actually zoom from your, from a zoom rocker on a gimbal. Sure, that's not something that's commonly possible, but with this one, it should be. Yeah.
Okay, good. Anyway, we can move forward and just conclude and say that obviously Nikon is working hard in order to fulfill some needs and requests from their users, and I think sooner than later we will see them even with more presence in this Cine market. Yeah,
I'm curious. I mean, I'm curious if they will make actual cinema lenses now that they have a super high end, high end red cameras in their lineup. And the question is, I mean, we talked about this the other week. Is like I think the prime lens cinema lens market is so saturated. I don't think it would be a good idea for them to go into this.
I think it's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
You know why? Because for the higher end, big DPs, great DPs already used to work with certain brands, certain lenses. Now, why should they change to a Nikon lens suddenly, as good as they are? And we know that so many other companies, I don't want to name names here, but so many other companies that we all know tried to kind of have a combat on the higher end of the lens market and never managed to do this. And then if you go to the lower end, you are facing obviously a competition with so many other companies like CineD and so on that are really pushing kind of good quality for a very affordable price, for example. So that means that if Nikon is going to do any Cine lenses, they really have to find a niche. They have to find the right price point and performance in order to live in between those two high end and low end. Yeah, I think it's very tough.
I agree. It's going to be very tough. Although, of course, from a Nikon perspective, they want it because usually lenses simply have much higher margins than any cameras. And of course, they will try to get also, I mean, if you buy a Nikon camera, like a normal but a Z camera, whatever, like a mirrorless camera, you're forced to buy a Nikon lens almost. You're like, or anything that is Z-mount compatible.
Not a Nikon lens, but yeah.
But the biggest choice are, of course, Nikon lenses. With the red cameras, it's simply a different story. And yes, you can use the adapter, and then also but out of convenience, of course, with all the electronic connections and autofocus and so on, it always makes sense to use the native lens.
I want to say one thing, especially if Nikon people are listening. So many times in exhibitions, people will come to the booth and will tell you it's a great idea to make lenses in this case. But in reality, also don't forget to ask them if they will buy those lenses. Because it's one thing to say it's a great idea, and it's a completely different thing to know if they will actually buy the lenses.
Yeah.
Good.
I think it will be just very hard to get. I mean, I think Nikon will probably have a problem. I'm sure they had discussions internally. I'm just assuming that, like, what are we doing with the RF mount? Because essentially they're, like having the RF mount on the red cameras means they're supporting their main competitor, Canon's business, because there are only Canon RF full frame lenses. There's no full frame RF lens from another manufacturer. So, like if you have people buying a red camera with an RF mount and they want to stay small and not use PL lenses, essentially they will buy Canon lenses. So, but kind of not selling that camera anymore would be not well, like
so it's ego versus reality.
The reception of that wouldn't be great. So, of course, they're now trying to do this with the Z-mount, but let's see. I mean, I hope they don't, they make the decision to not have RF mount anymore. But from a business perspective, it's probably something they've thought about. Let's see. I mean, let's hope it's not happening. We all like to have options as shooters. And but I agree. If they really need to be very innovative with lenses if they want to come up with something that's unique in the cinema market, especially. Yeah. We'll be back after this message from our sponsor.
1 Minute Tips by Fujifilm and CineD. The slate, or the clapper. Some might think it's as easy as clapping two sticks together and yelling action, but there's way more to it. Let's review the art of slating. This will be in 3 parts, so make sure to check out all of them. For those entirely unfamiliar with the concept, a slate has been used to sync sound and picture together basically since the invention of recorded sound in film. Sound and picture are often recorded separately, especially on bigger sets where they are entirely different departments, so the practice of slating helps the editor find the sync point between the two by aligning the first frame of the sticks touching to the transient clap sound recorded on the audio track. Nowadays, cameras and audio recorders are often synced with timecode, with most modern slates even displaying timecode on the front, but all of these new and old practices are used together instead of replacing the other to make syncing footage as efficient as possible. Check back in the next episode where we'll go over the exact steps of slating a take. 1 Minute Tips? Until next time.
And now back to the show. Yeah, let's move on to something else. The Filmatura, I hope that's how you say it, Filmatura M-Lite REVO, a DIY box-style cinema conversion kit for the quite dated Canon EOS M camera. Now,
it's like bringing something from the real past, huh? The Canon EOS M. You remember this camera?
12 years old, still with all the, I mean, it was, I think it was the first mirrorless from Canon.
APS-C?
But it's the first mirrorless mount from Canon, and everybody was a bit disappointed that it was APS-C, right? That was long before the RF mount. And yeah, so
I think that it's kind of discontinued or a long time ago.
I don't think it exists anymore, yeah.
I mean, there were 2 versions, basically.
Mm-hmm.
One version, smart people find a way to kind of hack it with the Magic Lantern whatever it was, like
firmware,
firmware, and then you actually were able to get 14-bit raw recording out of the camera. And I think later on, probably Canon didn't really like the idea, didn't want to support it, so they changed something. I don't know if it was a software or hardware. I have no clue. But in reality, on a later batch, you were not able to do this anymore. And this camera, apparently, when you look at some forums, is very popular.
Because of Magic Lantern.
Exactly. And people are still looking for it. And obviously, it was a really smart move to do a box-style conversion kit for it. And I think it's this company, Filmatura, are they from the Czech Republic, if I'm not mistaken?
They're called M-Lite. Filmatura M-Lite. I don't know what the company name is, to be honest. I guess Filmatura is the company name. But M-Lite REVO is the product, I think. Yeah, they're from the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very cheap. It's $300.
$300. And if you go to their site, you can see that the first batch is already gone and the next one will be only available in March. Of course, we don't know what it means, like how many units they had in the first batch.
It's apparently hand-built there with sustainable materials and so on. And we don't really know how you mentioned this to me before, how the camera actually connects to the body. Like, how do you get all these input signals and output signals to the housing? But they say you don't have to destroy your camera. Essentially,
it's a reversible process.
Exactly, the full body lives inside this housing. And for those of you who are listening to this and not seeing our video, the box is essentially, it looks like a Komodo. It's like a cube.
It looks from, I forgot the name of this, I think it was a Chinese, what was the name? A Chinese company. They made something very similar. I have to find the photo of it. It's actually a company that when we approach and ask them if they want to run a lab test, they kindly say, no, thank you. And I think they're selling some. What was the name? 1 second.
But this one looks like a cube. I don't know which one you're referring to, but this one also looks like a cube. Uses MPF batteries at the back. Of course, much better to use as a cinema camera in terms of form factor than just having the body of the EOS M, which is extremely small, actually. And of course, they made this because you have the 14-bit raw video with the Magic Lantern hack firmware that kind of lives on your memory card inside the camera. Yeah, and it's a bargain. I mean, it really is, because you can even get used Canon EOS M cameras between $150 and $300. So together with that modification, you might end up paying something like $500, and you have a cinema camera that shoots 14-bit RAW, which is pretty nice.
I just remember that's the camera I was referring to.
The Bosma.
The Bosma.
The Bosma G1 Pro. Yeah, where did that go?
If you look at the photos of the Bosma next to the...
Let me open that up.
Okay. I think that looks very similar.
The Bosma G1 Pro. Yeah, so I have it here. I kind of forgot about that. That was that 3D printed prototype.
No. It's
8K. Micro Four Thirds cinema camera.
Yeah, but they have different styles of camera. I'm just saying that the body design of the Bosma looks very similar to.
Did it ever? But it's actually available. It's something that exists.
It's available.
Okay.
The thing is like that.
It's $3,500 though on B&H.
Yeah, I mean originally. 1 second.
And it's an actual. It's not a rehousing. It's like
no.
It's its own camera.
Wait, I want to say something. If you remember, many years ago, many moons ago, we actually had a sneak peek, and we even filmed with an 8K sharp camera in Las Vegas. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
And that camera disappeared, vanished. And from our source of information, we know that somehow the technology in that sharp camera found its way into the Bosma. That's what we know. We were never able to really verify this. I hope it's not a kind of a rumor thing, but it doesn't matter. For the matter of fact, Bosma, if you ask the crowd, not many people heard about it, but obviously it's being sold into the US. I have no clue to what degree of success. We had a contact with the company some times ago, and we asked to send us a sample for reviewing and for lab test. We were kindly told no thank you, which is fine. And I don't know if you go to the Bosma site, I guess there maybe or at least other cameras were planned. But when I saw this conversion kit or box style kit, I immediately thought about the Bosma.
Yeah.
Okay, enough about Bosma.
Yeah, back to the Filmatura M-Lite REVO. So basically what it does is give you better connections compared to the original EOS M camera. It's giving you, they say, professional grade inputs and outputs, including a full-size HDMI and 3.5 millimeter mic input, USB-C charging input, which is nice, 12 volt DC barrel accessory power output, so you can use accessories with it and power it through the battery that's attached to the camera, and silent internal active cooling system, a fan, because that thing is getting hot. That's one of the problems. If you have Magic Lantern on a camera like that, that's one question. You're like, will the camera overheat inside even more? So you need a fan. I hope that helps with it. But really cool. I think this is definitely
we love projects like this.
Yeah, it's an enthusiast project, I'm sure. I mean, that's not something you make to get rich. That's something you make because you love a camera. And I'm sure what's his name, Tom Kamin from the Czech Republic, who is behind this project, loves his EOS M. And we love what he did. Yeah, really cool. And the first batch, as you said on the website, it says it's already sold out. We don't know how big the batch was, but you can see that people are interested in any case. Good, let's move on to a review that we published about the K&F Concept Mini Matte Box. Now, what's special about this matte box?
First of all, I mean, I don't know if you guys are aware of K&F Concept. They make a lot of accessories and filters, and the quality, I mean, it's really improving from generation to generation. So this kind of mini matte box was already available in the past, but now with the improved version, I was kind of blown away when I see the quality and the price. Of course, this is not for high-end usage. This matte box is really for entry level, and for $109 what they are offering. Wait, I have it here somewhere. 1 second. First of all, it's really nice how it comes packaging wise.
It does. I was surprised. I mean, the first time I opened it, I was like, okay, this is carbon fiber and so on. And
So
I
it's a
was
mixture.
surprised to hear it's
So
$100.
it's a mixture of carbon fiber for the wings and for the flags, for the French flag here, but the rest is plastic. So it has 2 trays, which for many of the usages it's quite enough. And then it comes with, one second, I'll put it here, with a set of adapters for different lenses, because at the end that doesn't really has a rod. It's you have to clamp it on a lens. So your lens must have a kind of a screw-in solution, otherwise it will not work. And then it's the small things that we need. Where is this now? You can extend, so light is not really entering the lens if you need. And there's also a cheaper version of this one.
Even cheaper?
Even cheaper for $45. Okay. Unbelievable. And the cheaper version we won't have the French flags and the side wings here, but still for what it is good. What you cannot do with that, you cannot rotate the trays and so on. But I really urge you guys, if you need if you need one of those matte boxes and you're looking for an entry level solution in terms of price for quality.
What's the weight on this?
I can't remember by heart, but you touch
light.
it, it's very light.
It's definitely interesting for gimbal use. That's the main thing I can see this for. And of course, I mean we've seen a lot of lightweight matte boxes in the last few years. Of course, many of them much higher quality, but also much higher priced. I mean, there's like the Misfit Atom from Brad Tangerine, which is made of rubber. And then you have a couple ones. Tilta has one which is more affordable, and Small Rig and so on. I mean, this market has really been, there's a lot of budget options now which are not bad. And this is definitely one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of filters, of course, they are providing their own filters, and it's very easy to put in and out the trays. Well, I'm saying easy. Nino is a bit struggling here. But
I haven't used it, so I'm just trying. Okay, so it's a lock system.
That's right.
Really cool. Okay, I don't want to open it now, so it falls apart.
No. But again,
so 2 filter trays is actually good for this size because
it's a pity it's not rotatable. But I guess in this price range you can't really have it all. Yeah, and the filters inside is 4x5.65 and. Kind of the standard in our industry.
Yeah, the review is online now. It's a written review on our site. It's made by Marcel Klein, who's a camera assistant here in Austria. And he took a long, close look at this and liked what he saw for the budget. But of course also talks about the shortcomings compared to higher end solutions. Good. Let's move on to 2 other new products. Actually, DJI was busy this week announcing new gimbals, more on the lower end. First of all, the first one.
We are like magicians today, huh?
We're magicians, yeah.
Magicians, yeah.
So this one was announced earlier this week. It's the Osmo Mobile 7, and that's the 7th generation of their phone gimbal. Now, this is not something we typically review, but of course I can only talk about it compared to their normal higher end gimbals for professional cameras that I regularly use. And I mean they've I think this is the first time they released a phone gimbal in 3 years. It's quite a long time actually for those kind of things. Remember those days when we went to trade shows and you feel like half of the trade show consisted of different gimbals, which was insane. I never understood why so many companies were making gimbals. And basically, to be honest, I mean, there's only a few players left. I mean, there's DJI, there's Zhun, I think is that how you say your name?
Yeah.
And not many more. I mean, there used to be so many of those. And the truth is that DJI, with their technology and innovation, basically is driving a lot of the other ones, I think, out of business because there's
OM or whatever.
OM, yeah. But they are just, like DJI is doing these things so well, just like with the drones, that it's very difficult for others to exist. So this one.
So what's new with this one? I mean,
what's new with this one? first of all, there's two versions now. There's one version. We have the version that is, I think, not extendable, but there is a version that actually has kind of a built-in, almost like selfie stick,
like
so you can extend it.
Extra.
Yeah. And basically, you now have this little optional module, which first of all gives you, they call it AI functions, which is tracking related, which is quite cool. And a little light. So there's a little light connected to the side here. It's all wireless, so it actually gets the power. It's connected magnetically here, and it gets the power, and it just snaps on like that. I think part of the whole, I mean, with this one, it's not really about, like balancing is always relatively easy with phone gimbals, because you saw I just put it on, switch it on, and that's it. But it's, like you don't need to be worried about, like the gimbal not working in any direction in this case, at least what I tried. You can connect it even to, I think, the Apple Watch.
Yeah, you can. This is the first time that they're offering this.
You can, of course, that makes sense if you want to film yourself and you put this somewhere with a stand. I don't have the stand here, and then you can just, start recording from the watch. And I think you can even see the image on the watch, which is.
I'm not so sure, and I don't know. I mean, I have to get a bit more knowledgeable, because it's also working in conjunction with their Mimo app.
The Mimo app, yeah, of course, yeah. The app always works, and I'm on all the intelligent tracking things. Usually works through the app, and
the price. I mean, the price is again kind of for me insane to have. This is $89. And the version with the kind of extra 20 centimeters stick will be $102 or something.
Yeah. And this, they call this the multifunctional module. So this is supposed to enhance the tracking capabilities and also focusing. And this light I just read actually is a bicolor light, and it's between 2,500 and 6,000 Kelvin, which is nice. So because just can adjust to the ambient light, or you manually control it. And then, with a module, you can even make gestures to take photos. So it films you make a V, it takes a photo. You can start or stop video recording, make a double L, what, like this? I don't know. Gesture.
Double.
With two hands, adjusting a subject's, like this, like... do like this, and it adjusts the framing.
Okay.
That's
so
pretty
guys,
cool.
Sorry, not like this.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of, this is definitely a consumer device. DJI asked us if we want to take a look at it. We said yes, we will, in conjunction with other smartphone stuff that, we will test at some point, where we will not do a dedicated review for this, because it's simply not our type of thing. But as soon as we move into doing some kind of test about a smartphone feature, it makes sense to have a gimbal like that. And the second device they announced is a bit more professional, I would say, and it's the Ronin RS4 Mini. Now this
so small, lightweight, it's amazing.
So I work a lot with the RS4 Pro, which is their high-end RS series. I mean, I would say their highest-end gimbal, actually, because they haven't updated the normal Ronin 2 in many years, which is their big gimbal. But RS4 Pro does everything you can think of. Now, the RS3 Mini, of course, was announced together with the RS3 Pro at the time. But the 4, they have a normal 4 and they have the 4 Pro. Now, what are the differences between those? Well, first of all, it's the payload capacity. The 4 Mini can take up to 2 kilograms. The 4 Pro can do 4.5, and the RS4 can do 3 kilograms. Also, of course, the entire setup is much lighter. And they have a couple of really cool ideas. Some of the main complaints of the RS3 Mini were that you still had to manually lock the axis. And this is something they announced with the RS4. I think they had it in the RS3 already. I'm not sure, but on the RS4 and 4 Pro for sure, the axes are locking automatically. What does that mean? You have your camera on it, you have it finished, like it's balanced. you switch it on and you switch it off again, and when it or you just go to standby mode, it automatically turns all the axes in this standby mode and then locks each axis. You don't need to manually lock them when you switch it off, which is so useful, because every time you take a gimbal and switch it on, work with it, switch it off, the older gimbals would just simply lose control of the motors, and then it's just like hanging down, and it's dangerous also when it's standing like this. And now they lock down automatically, which is extremely useful in practice.
It's basically doing what they do with the Osmo Pocket 3. When you switch it off, it's locked.
Yeah, but it's much harder, of course, to do it with something this heavy with a camera on.
But with so many small cameras in the market, the Panasonic Lumix S9 or the Fujifilm X M5, that can really work well. I think those are still within the limitation.
Very often, actually, you don't need a very large gimbal. I'm sure that, I could use this I usually fly it with like a Sony A7S III or something like this, maybe sometimes with a monitor. Sometimes the lens is a bit heavier, but most of the time not. And I could use this too. There were limitations in the past about I think it was the was it still the RS3 Mini? But basically you're at some point limited with how far you can move back because this arm is shorter. It's not so much the total payload capacity, because 2 kilograms is enough for most small cameras, any camera packages anyway, but at some point you can't move further back, and then you can't balance like a zoom lens like a 24-70 anymore. I think this is a little bit better here now. I'll have to try, so it should be able. Also, one thing I think that's what DJI pointed out. They made balancing it easier, and that's I think one complaint, that you're not really somebody who works with gimbals, because you said like the balancing is cumbersome, and it has been cumbersome for a lot of people who are not used to working with gimbals. And this has been much, simplified now as much as possible, which is quite useful. Actually, the gimbals, also DJI gimbals in general, also help you by telling you where the imbalance is. So like, even if you're not sure, you could switch it on. It will tell you, actually, that axis is a little bit out of whack. You switch it back off, and then you adjust it tiny bit, and it's fine, and that's supposed to be a lot easier. This one is also much easier to switch to vertical mode now. Of course, something that a lot of like social media creators need constantly is switch between horizontal and vertical mode. Like if you shooting for different purposes with the same camera, that's of course very useful.
How much will it cost?
This is also very cheap. I think there are weights. There's the gimbal itself. I don't think it's confirmed yet, but the information I have is somewhere between $300 and $370, which is affordable. And then the combo, which includes also an intelligent tracking module, similar to I don't have it here, but it's similar to the one on the Osmo Mobile 7, is $370 to $450.
This intelligent thing, do you know how it works? It's LiDAR thing, or we're not really sure?
I'm not sure, to be honest. If it's probably based on LiDAR. They don't say it's LiDAR though. So this is something I definitely want to test with this gimbal, because of course, I mean, if it makes tracking, if it enhances tracking, I'm not somebody who usually uses a lot of the automatic tracking modes, but it's nice. I mean, you can, like in general, you could do this with older versions of the gimbal too. You just put it on a table, you set it to track your face. You can literally walk around the table and it will follow you and keep you in frame, and even keep the framing with, like the
perspective.
Exactly. Trying to adjust also like, like wherever you are in the frame. So it's not just randomly putting you somewhere. It's always adjusting. So that's pretty cool. And apparently that's better with this module. But I'll have to look into this.
It's really, really lightweight. It's amazing. Great for traveling. Maybe I should reconsider again, because that's one of the reasons, besides the balancing issue.
I think you love it. I mean, you were also one of the first DJI products you really looked at was the Pocket, right? And you loved it. I think you will love this too. It's quite, those things are very easy to use now. And they also said they somehow Teflon is built into this, which makes balancing easier or something. I have to find out what exactly that means, but parts of the gimbal are made of Teflon,
Maybe it's for the lightweight. I mean, but Teflon, we use it in frying pans and so on. So the food
it's
is
this
not
surface,
sticking.
so it has Teflon interlayers for the axis arms. So like maybe it makes it just easier to adjust here.
Right.
But yeah,
Don't cook on it at home. Yeah,
don't do that.
Yeah.
No. So stabilization algorithm is enhanced. They say that extreme movements with running in, for example, a low angle shoot is now better. That is something where usually when you do low angle and you go walk or run, it's even harder to get rid of this, like typical gimbal movement. Apparently the algorithm is better now.
So basically what DJI need to do is just add a camera of their own to this. And then we have an Osmo not pocket thing, which like they have already, but kind of older generation. That would be great. Imagine one piece.
Yeah.
The
follow mode is supposed to be more responsive, which is something that I really love because I had issues with that before on some of their gimbals, older ones, where it's this typical thing where you turn and it just takes time to follow, because of course the gimbal needs to always differentiate between, is this a movement that I should kind of get rid of and not compensate, or is it an intentional movement by the operator? So this is always good if it's getting better. But again, I mean, you see, like DJI owns this market too now, and there's not much room left for others. There's I think they're the only ones that have some of those fine-tuning things that you need on the side here, and a lot of other things. So pretty cool. Fast charging now also available, and I think it lasts a little bit longer too, but the battery has also gotten a bit larger. So let's see. But for me, the big thing, I mean, of course, that's not a revolution. I think gimbals are very advanced in general now. You're also fine with the older generation. If you get an older one or even secondhand, I'm sure you're fine. But if you want all the bells and whistles, of course, that's the new one. For me, the locking mechanism, the auto lock, makes a big difference in everyday shooting because it simply saves you a lot of time.
For me, it's the Teflon.
Yeah, you can fry something with it. So this as usual with DJI products is probably available now. Because we are recording this on Wednesday. This is announced the day we release the episodes on Thursday.
One day after, yeah.
So I'm sure they are starting to ship already. Good. So that's the news from DJI. Let's move on to our poll of the week.
I tell you, Nino, this is so much fun to create a poll. And usually we do this together with Florian, who sits right here and managing all the buttons for our podcast. And this time we wanted to know what people prefer, IBIS, like in-body stabilization system, or digital stabilization. And we have almost 400 people answering, and it's quite interesting to see that many people are using both. And one of the reasons that we asked this question to start with was because some of the companies or some camera manufacturers that don't really have IBIS implemented in their cameras are claiming that the digital stabilization is doing a great job those days. And actually, you can skip some of the limitations like wobbly and so on that will be found in IBIS. So they are actually experimenting or bringing to the market the digital stabilization. And of course, there are some companies or camera manufacturers that you have the IBIS and then you have the digital version of it. It can work together. And if you have a stabilized lens, it can also take into the account altogether. But we were wondering how people are actually working or what they prefer to use. So it looks like that most of the people are really happy to work with both the IBIS and the digital stabilization in their camera. Others, and I was a bit surprised, but quite a lot also want to use only IBIS without experimenting the digital part. And then many don't really mind digital stabilizations altogether. And some, like 41 votes, will never work with a digital stabilization. So all in all, I think people are very open-minded to work with a combination of both. But other than that, more people would like the actual optical IBIS and not the digital version. But this is something to explore. I mean, I wish that we had really the time and the capacity to take some cameras and literally do one-on-one comparison.
I think it simply depends on the type of shooting, because both have advantages and disadvantages, right? I mean, I think we talked about this before, where the problem with digital stabilization is often that you with a fifth, like let's say a 48th of a second shutter speed or 50th of a second shutter speed, if you have fast movement and you will have motion blur, that looks very weird if it's sometimes stabilized, and because it's just simply not exposed properly, quote unquote, the individual still frames, and it will just look strange if you apply post stabilization on this. That's one thing. And then of course we have the wobble on the IBIS, which is the other thing. And we have actually some really good comments that we can go through here about this subject. Stashek writes, digital stabilization introduces an artifact I really hate. I haven't seen any name for it, but it basically works like that. When camera moves, it introduces parallax between foreground and background. Electronically, you can only stabilize one and the other is moving. It is most apparent in phone videos where the movement is biggest, but you can also see it after applying more aggressive electronic stabilization to a footage from a heavier camera. It can't be avoided. That's just how perspective works, unless we're getting some heavy-duty AI voodoo to manipulate the footage. I think he's right. You understand what he means. It's basically this parallax movement. You have foreground and background movement, and then if the software stabilizes one or the other, it just looks off because it's not an actual, and you can't. I mean, he's right. You can't fix that with post stabilization. This is only something that could be fixed in camera. I
personally don't like post stabilization. From some, like for example, Sony and also Blackmagic Design do have a gyro to record movement in their cameras, and then you can also in post you can stabilize the image. Personally, I really, especially when you do the documentary style filming, I want to see what I get. I don't want to be surprised and then go to the editing room and find out that what I thought it might work is not really working because of those type of limitations.
It's yes, and also I think it's just very difficult to, you kind of have to tell if you're not doing the post-production, you have to tell the editor to apply stabilization, and you simply don't do that. I mean, it's like you come from a shooting day and you're like, 7 hours ago I had this one scene where I would be useful to apply the gyro stabilization in post. That's not very realistic. But we have a comment from Benjamin Corvin who's actually contradicting you. Hear me out. Gyro-based post-stabilization is by far the best method of stabilization. Here are some reasons, not all of them. If you're a Sony user that uses native E-mount lenses, Catalyst browsers, gyro-based stabilization is seriously miraculous. Like, seriously. Early on, they had a few bugs to sort out, but I can now report that is nearly flawless way to stabilize your footage. Shoot at any focal length and get perfect gimbal-like results every time. It's truly incredible. If you don't believe me, I can upload some samples. Programs like Catalyst Browse also give you excellent flexibility with just how much stabilization you want to apply. Want a little bit more natural shake? No problem. You ultimately decide the final result. Maybe we should test that.
Well, I actually, Benjamin, first of all, thank you for this comment. But also, I just please let me know when you shooting, you have to imagine how the end result with stabilization will be. That's the only thing that I'm not contradicting at all what you say here, and it might be a really great thing. I just mentally need to overcome this imagination of the outcome. If you can be kind and explain to me how you do this, I'm very much happy to learn.
Maybe Sony should make an external recorder, and then just you can attach it to the Sony camera and then just like automatically apply the gyro data that you're it's like so you can see it. I agree with you. I think it's probably a matter of experience.
Maybe we're missing something, because James right after writes in response to Benjamin that every manufacturer should include gyro metadata in the files. So I'm very curious. Maybe I'm missing something here on the workflow.
Well, the good thing is it is of course post stabilization, but it is cropping into your image. I think the problem is you don't really know how much it will crop in.
This is maybe easy. Well, yeah.
No, it depends on the amount of shake.
Yeah.
So that's the difficult part here. But yeah, I have a Sony FX9 that I literally haven't really used the gyro data ever, and I probably
but do you have to activate it? Because again, I'm not.
No,
working.
it's always recording. It's always recorded. It's always there. You just need to. The problem is you need to go through Sony's Catalyst browse.
Yep.
You can, as far as I know, you cannot activate that through directly in Premiere or DaVinci or whatever. So that's of course an extra step that if you don't do the post production,
But again, if you guys have a solution or a bit more knowledgeable than us, of course, we are very happy to hear your workflow, exactly how you do it from filming and later on with the post production.
Yeah, but there's a lot of interesting comments here that actually are the completely different opinions on the subject. But I guess the answer is there is no perfect stabilization. It depends on what you're shooting, and they all have.
What we can say, and I can say this in confidence, that some manufacturers are working actively to enhance the stabilization system, both IBIS and in a digital way, because they are aware of the limitations of each, each version. So they're really trying to work hard to find solution and integrate those better. Hopefully, we can see some results soon.
Yeah. And absolutely. So just check out those comments here. It's definitely something that we need to be aware of. Also, one thing that I constantly forget to set the right focal length in these stabilization things. Do you always think about this? Sometimes I switch on, like in Sony Alpha cameras, I have the stabilization on, and then I don't use a native lens, and then of course it doesn't know which focal length it uses. And the stabilization is on, and then I only realized that I never changed it.
It's a night and day difference sometimes. You really have to do, but that's with fixed focal length lenses. I'm always kind of, what do you do when you have a zoom lens? It's kind of
but you still are supposed to always set it to
something.
That's very difficult.
Yeah.
Good. Let's move on to another piece of news, and that's the announcement of the Nanlux Evoke 5000B, a 5,000 watt LED spotlight with bicolor and first, I think in the industry, green magenta control in a light as big as that. Now 5,000 watts from an LED. Nanlux,
almost like inventing the sun again, huh?
Well, they really are racing to replace every light in the market, like from like even the big hot lights with LEDs now, and this is crazy. I mean, we are talking about the equivalent, that's what Nanlux claims, of 9 kilowatt HMIs or 25 kilowatts tungsten. So that's significant.
Well, so first of all, if you really want to know how Nanlux or Nanguang, that's the mother company of Nanlux and Nanlite, how they make those lights, we made a very nice factory tour last year. And it was simply fascinating. I have no other word to explain what they do. Also, when it comes to the quality control, that was really mind blowing. So this is one thing. And the second thing is, it always feels like a kind of an endless competition with aperture, like who has bigger and stronger. So I think for now the lead is with Nanlux, if I'm not mistaken, and. Being a family-owned business, Nanguang, the mother company of Nanlux, I think they're very focused to also conquer the upper market and not only the consumer market with the with the Nanlite product, but also Nanlux.
I'm also hearing, I think they are also in terms of like from in the high-end industry and from rental houses, that they have a very good reputation for service, which is something that I hear Aperture sometimes struggles a bit more. I'm not saying they have bad service. I'm just saying that the service network and the serviceability of Nanlux lights, what I heard from a few gaffers actually, they're doing a good job if something breaks. And that's always great to hear, because of course with a company that is in China, it's not next door for us in the West, in whether Europe or US. So you need serviceability for these things. And because they are really targeting the high end, that means these lights also end up being used on big sets in rental houses. They need to be serviceable.
Well,
so
that's the whole thing here. I think you really need peace in mind when you purchase those. And I think it doesn't matter what you buy in our industry, people will always vote for a company that has a good service. Yeah. But here, this fixture, it's at 46 kilo.
Yeah, it's I mean, compared to what is an HMI with a ballast in 9 kilowatts, so it's probably much more. It's like, I guess especially the ballast.
And when it comes to pricing, of course, we are talking about quite high price for. I mean, it is not cheap. It's almost 14,800 for the standard package, and if you want the flight case, it's 15,500.
And it's IP66 rated, so you can use it in rain and outside. So this can be your sun through the windows.
Absolutely.
And with probably significantly less power consumption than the HMI equivalent. Especially
and please don't try to put it on your mirrorless camera. It's just too big.
Yeah, you tried. Yeah.
No.
Good. Let's move on to a piece of news that we heard like end of last week is that Sony tough CFexpress Type A cards, some of them are suffering from a data saving issue when it gets really cold. They are rated to be working until minus 10 degrees, but it seems like some of those, not all of the cards, some of those actually start to have issues saving images and videos.
So what now? Sony
just even above that. So
Sony now is offering a little sweatshirt to put on the card?
Yeah, no, they are offering to basically send in the cards and repair them, although I'm wondering if they just swap them for new ones. But they say they're getting repaired. You have to send them in. But you have to check your serial number on the card in order to find out if they are affected. So this does not affect all of their Type A cards. It affects some badges.
But there's a comment. Please read the comment because that's really interesting. That was just in time.
Yeah, that was really interesting. So Matt Ziniel replied one day after we posted this, I can't believe this article just appeared one day after I wrapped a shoot in negative temperatures with these exact cards and was continually experiencing this problem every day throughout the 4-day shoot. What a nightmare, but glad the issue is reported and being addressed. I think we were the first ones to report about this. And so good that Sony is aware of it.
Yeah.
Not so great that it's happening, but at least they're addressing it. Yeah.
Good.
I just wish they would probably just, like if you have a card like that, in my opinion, they just should send you a replacement. And why do you need to send the card in? It's not that I doubt that they will repair the card. They probably just give you a new one. But anyway, it's just in terms of time, right? You lose your card for some time. We posted something really cool this week.
A different topic.
Yeah, different topic. We posted something really cool this week. You guys might remember, what's the name? Media Division. Guys from Germany, production company from Germany, actually, with a really cool YouTube channel. We've reported about their videos before. They're very, very good in explaining topics, and they do it in such an entertaining and extremely high quality way. It looks like straight out of Hollywood. And this time, they have a new video called The Magic Sauce, a recipe to create cinematic films. And it is really an entertaining 2-hour deep dive into all the ingredients required to make a film look cinematic. And the way Nicholas Moldenhauer, the CEO of the company, and his team made this, it looks simply amazing.
It's really, the amount of time is insane. So even, guys, out of respect to the amount of time and effort that went into this, plus knowledge. It doesn't matter if you went to film school, if you're a big DP, smaller DP, doesn't matter. It's just really worth watching. It's simply the amount of knowledge and information there is insane.
And he's such a nice guy. We met him at IBC several times, and it's just simply the way he put himself into a movie or several movies. Actually, in this case, he's in The Silence of the Lambs with Jodie Foster, and put himself into the prison cell of Hannibal Lecter. So he's basically Hannibal Lecter, and they explains the whole thing. And yeah, it's a lot of movie examples. It's a 2-hour video, and it's worth watching every second of it. The way it's done, very, very comprehensive, talking about what makes the cinema look cinematic, because of course it's a very elusive word we throw it around every day, but there's a lot of different factors that go in. He gave us a really nice shout out to the CineD databases actually inside the video, which is why like we were in touch with him before, and he's talking about the importance of dynamic range as well, based on the data that we have collected in our lab tests and in the databases. So that's very nice. And I'm very glad that we could be helpful here in this case. And just give it a watch and check it out. It's just really amazing. It's not your everyday YouTube video. I have to ask him how many months of work went into this next to normal production work. It's incredible. It's called The Magic Sauce. We'll put the link to our article in the show notes as well, which also explains a little bit the content of the video and has the video embedded, so you can check it out. Moving on to the last few subjects today. First of all, the DoPchoice, our friends from Munich who are doing modifiers for light, announced a very big modifier. It's called AIRGLOW Float, and it's a round Toplight modifier, which is inflatable, which makes this whole, what is it called usually? The skirt. You put a skirt around something and you want to light your typical table setup with a very nice soft light from the top.
Yeah. So first of all, the inflatable arena of lights is really growing up. It's really amazing that so many companies now are offering whatever version of inflatable lights. I also have to say that I actually visited the company this week for different purposes, but Stefan, the owner, and his team are extremely friendly. They are simply very nice people, and they have a perfect size. It's a combination of the office and the studio, and of course a storage room, and where they modify and try and work on their R&D on future products. Very sympathetic, very nice people, and I think this is one of the outcome. I know from Stefan that this particular piece of kit, because he also showed it at the BSC in London that just ended last week. I think there was a lot of requests to make this thing even bigger. So I really hope that he will consider this, because sometimes when you are in exhibitions like this, especially smaller exhibitions, it's all about networking and really listen to what people want. Yeah, and that's interesting.
Can we hang one in here? Does it make sense?
I think you're gonna hang me before you hang one of those here.
Yeah, it's cool. We know this is not easy. It takes work from gaffers, electricians to make this look happen over a conference table or whatever, and kind of to have this finished out of the bag. And I think you can combine this with all kinds of COB lights and also LED like panel fixtures. So it's quite adaptable actually to have this already kind of as a package without having to, invent it in a way every time with, black cloth and so on. So that's quite nice. Good. Let's move on to a topic that's not so popular about a lot of people. Adobe Firefly video model launches in public beta now. Adobe Firefly, it's a generative AI by Adobe, which they say is the only safe AI when it comes to copyright in the market, commercially safe, meaning basically it's trained on all the Adobe stock material. And at some point, I guess they asked the creators of Adobe stock if it's, if they agree to train the Adobe AI with it. And I guess nobody said no, otherwise they would have had to pull their data out of the Adobe stock library. So that's now they can say it's commercially safe. which is not the case for some of the competitors that allegedly were trained on everything that we shot, and then that's online, like all of us, which is not great, of course. But Firefly Video, this is now in public beta, and I think it's built into, there's a web app. You can, like just write what you want and it will generate a video. You can put in a reference image. It will make a video around it. It can even, you can kind of, after it generated something, control the camera angles. So you can tell it to pan left, right, zoom in, out, tilt up and down. And then it comes up with something else. And it's now only HD. It will be 4K in the future, and they actually already built a product around it. So the standard version is $9.99 per month, and then there's a pro version for $30, and there will be a premium in the future. And it limits, it depending on which tier you get, it's basically limiting the amount of generations you can get. So yeah, that's here now, and it's kind of built into Premiere as well. So yeah, what do you say?
Again, it's a glimpse to the future, and I'm happy that at least they're trying to address that the AI model is training on their own thing, which is always feels a little bit better and right, but of course we can't verify, and with those big companies, what can I say? You never know. But
I feel like I don't know what your feeling is, but the more time we spend with this AI stuff, the generative AI, the more pushback we all feel like.
For creating content, you mean?
No, for seeing stuff like that. When I see something, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube, that is not declared AI, but then people are raising questions. The pushback is big, not only from, which actually gives me hope, not only from our industry, from shooters and creators, but also from the general public, because everybody feels fooled. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's starting to feel fooled, and they're getting so good that it's getting harder and harder to identify those things on one hand. But it's really, the problem is people are starting to question almost every image. You see videos online now, and even if they're real, the first few and the most liked comments on Instagram very often are, is this AI or not? It's really a problem, and it's not as if people accept this as something they should, believe, because everybody knows that we're losing trust in the image, and that's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, I recently saw it's kind of a short political video, kind of featuring top American actors, actresses, and directors, and so on. I don't want to go into the actual video itself, but I'm saying it was made so good that I was immediately like, how did they manage to bring all of those people together at such a short time and create something like this? And then, of course, my talking to myself was, it has to be AI, and obviously it was AI, and obviously one of the actresses, Scarlett Johansson, who was featured in this, without her permission, immediately tried to protest.
Yeah,
but this is it's alarming. So on one hand, we still have to be knowledgeable what those tools can do, but on the other hand, if there will be no regulatory, like a way to control, and as you said, to let the people beforehand to know that what they're about to watch is made with AI.
What's also interesting is that with all this talk about, don't want to go into details, but deregulation of social media platforms, and monitoring of what's being posted there in terms of what's real and what's not. Sometimes I see such videos popping up, whether it's from high profile events like the Super Bowl or the presidential inauguration in the US or other stuff, and you realize that they are taking a real video and making people in, like you said, people in this video do things they never did, and it looks completely real. This pops up on Instagram, but then it's gone. You know what I mean? this is immediately viral. It gets thousands and thousands of shares, millions of views, but they cut it off. Good that they do that. So apparently there still is some kind of moderation here because they realize this would immediately like kill trust. And it's a real issue, and I don't know where this leads.
The way the world is going to, I don't think it's going to be solved anytime soon.
Yeah. Let's move on to our last subject, which is a bit more positive, I guess.
Yeah.
Our friends from Filmstro launched a new version of their audio software. Now, what is Filmstro? We've worked with Filmstro for years and always checked in on their progress. Now, Filmstro is a really, really cool way of making music, or actually generating kind of music for your video without having to, it's basically stock music that you can change. I think that's
control
the way.
Much better.
Control.
And it's not about cutting it. It's also really emphasize certain instruments and so on.
And they were there before everybody used the AI buzzword. I just want to point that out. It's not AI, but it is still very smart. It's intelligent without being artificial, I guess. So they have a library of a lot of stock music that they commissioned from composers or purchased, but mostly commissioned. And it's kind of the noob's way of controlling music without being a musician in your films. So essentially you have a library of a lot of tracks that consist of three, basically they divide, I think it's called, I have to look it up, momentum, depth, and power. Yeah. And some of it is more like the bass level of the rhythm. One is the melody, and it's kind of summarizing the elements of the video of any piece of music into those three different things, and then you can change those sliders and adjust how it will sound.
There's a nice demo, by the way. We added a kind of a widget with a demo, so you can play with that and see just what it does, because sometimes explaining about music is just better to hear. No?
Now, there used to be a Premiere plugin, and a lot of people loved it and were a little bit disappointed when it was discontinued. And we know Sebastian Jäger, the guy, the owner and brain behind it, really struggled with the development because it was kind of like the software base wasn't up to date. So they moved it to a web app, and a lot of people were hoping that it would come back to Premiere. I think it's now nice to say that this is coming finally again, and actually it's so much better than it used to be, because now they just introduced, it's very, very stable, it works really well, and now you finally have keyframes. That was one of the main issues that I always had, is that you could always kind of record, you watched your whole movie that you were doing the soundtrack for, and you were working with these sliders, but it wasn't possible to be very precise with things sometimes, and now you can be extremely precise. You can set keyframes, you can do like different logarithmic curves to fade in, fade out, and be very, very precise of what you're doing. And the demo is really good. Go check it out. I think it's one of the most innovative ways to score your film without actually having to pay a composer, and still work with stock music. Now, I will get a lot of emails from composers that are upset, but I think this is a very cool way.
Not everybody can afford a composer.
Exactly. I mean, it's like those typical kind of projects that use stock music would not be able to afford a composer. It's exactly the point, yeah. And you are able to be quite flexible with this now. So go check it out. We actually also have a 10% discount code for CineD readers on our website, and it's CineD V410, but it's all there on the website in the link in the show notes. And there's different tiers, whether you are working on personal projects or social media, or professionally, or really for TV and a theatrical release. All of this is fine and can be licensed for all those purposes, because they own the music. So go check it out. Filmstro version 4 has been launched. Good.
One last thing, very, very short. We haven't announced it publicly, but at the end of every article, you can now see a little heart. I mean, you can. We know people are busy. Not everybody's interested to leave a comment and so on. But you can still show appreciation to our team when they sit and they write articles or spend so much time on reviews and so on. Click this button, and then we will know that you actually really liked it. You liked what you saw, and you appreciate the time that was invested into making this article.
Yeah, I'll show you in case you watch the video here. You scroll to the end of an article, and there's this little button which says "Like this article." You click on it, and there is confetti usually. Yes, there's confettis. So you get confettis. Okay. Thanks everybody for watching. Please give us a good rating on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you're watching podcasts or listening to podcasts rather. And also leave comments. We, as you know, and here every week now, we are also talking about these comments. And hear you next week. See you next week.
Bye guys. Thank you.
Bye.